Hi, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to start on exercises 1.1 and 1.2. Um, yes. Okay, so the exercises are submitted via GitHub, and by marking the exercises done in the My Submissions tab of the submission application. The exercises are submitted one part at a time. When you have submitted the exercises for a part of the course, you can no longer submit undone exercises for the same part. Note that in this part there are more exercises besides those found below. Do not submit your work until you have completed all the exercises you want to submit for the part. You may submit all the exercises of this course into the same repository or use multiple repositories. If you submit exercises in different parts in the same repository, please use sensible naming scheme for the directories. One very functional structure for the submission repository is as follows. So we're going to follow this structure. Okay, see this example submission repository. Yeah, so this is just the a repo that shows you like how to structure the exercise code. For each part of the course, there is a directory which further branches into directories containing a series of exercises like Unit Cafe for part 1. Most of the exercises of the course build a larger application, e.g. course info, Unicafe, and anecdotes in this part, bit by bit. It is enough to submit the completed application. You can make a commit after each exercise, but that is not compulsory. For example, the course info app is built in exercise 1.1 to 1.5. It is just the end result after 1.5 that you need to submit. Okay, so I actually got that wrong. I thought course info was this this part here, all of this information here. But it looks like course info is actually an app to be created for 1.5 and 1.1 to 1.5. In that case, I will create a new component. Actually, I will rename this one into something along the lines of okay. And so now we can finally start with course information, exercise 1.1. The application that we'll start working on this exercise will be further developed in a few of the following exercises. In this and other upcoming exercises sets in the course, it is enough to only submit the final state of the application. If desired, you may also create a commit for each exercise of the series, but this is entirely optional. Use Vi to initialize a new application, modify main.jsx to match the following. Okay, so we do pnpm create. What was the command? I think let's just go back here. So it is pnpm create vite at latest course info template react. Okay, great. Now we cd into course info and then um, change main.jsx to the following and add js.jsx to the following and remove the extra files app.css, index.css, and also remove the directory assets. So we're just doing the same as before. Um, delete these files here. Don't ask me again. Unfortunately, the entire application is in the same component. Refactor the code so that it consists of 3 new components: header, content, and total. All data still resides in the app component, which passes the necessary data to each component using the props. Header takes care of the rendering of the name of the course, content renders the parts of the number of exercises, and total renders the total number of exercises. Define the new components in the file app.jsx. The app component's body will approximately be as follows. Okay, that sounds easy enough. So we have this app component here. Here's the definitions as mentioned by this comment here. And then we want to separate out three different components, the header, the content, and total, and pass this information into these components. So we can do const header equals return so this should be this here. Return the heading, and then instead of course we have props, and then props.course. And finally, if we go down here, we can use header course equals course. So this variable refers to this variable here, and then this refers to the props.course up in the header component. So we're just passing this variable through into the header component via the props. Okay, so that's the first one done. Warning, don't try to program all the components concurrently because that will almost certainly break down the whole app. Proceed in small steps. First make the component header, and only when it works for sure you could proceed to the next component. Careful, small step progress may seem slow, but it's actually by far the fastest way to progress. Famous software developer Robert Uncle Bob Martin has stated, "The only way to go fast is to go well." That is, according to Martin, careful progress with small steps is even the only way to be fast. Okay, so let's oh, actually I need to first install the install the npm packages, and then do pnpm dev. Okay, so if we go open up the dev console, there are no warnings or errors. So it looks like the header component is done. Second one is content. Okay. So for content, we have part 1, part 2, part 3. Wait, let's just see. All the data passing this is using. The header takes care of the rendering the name of the course. Content renders the parts and their number of exercises. So all of this should be the content. We have content. Const content equals props arrow, and then return and so we've got to add, oops, oh, it's complaining because it has to have one element. So here we use the fragment as mentioned in the previous video to wrap that, and now it's fine. And then so instead of part 1 and exercise 1, we got to add props dot part one props. Yeah, you just gotta add props to in front of all these variables here. So it's all coming from the props object. And now for content, we can pass in part one, exercise one. Okay, so we can do part one equals part one, part two equals part two, part three equals part three, exercise one equals exercises one, exercises two equals exercises two, exercises three equals three. And so we're passing in 6 variables into the content component, and they're being rendered out here. Again, with the props object. So if we go back and refresh, again, no errors or warnings. And it looks like they are all being shown here. So finally, we have the total component, which is this paragraph here. So if I just get here, cut that, and then we do const total equals props, and then just add as before props, props, and props for the third variable. Now we pass in total, and then we can pass in these props here. And again, no errors or warnings. We have the same application as before, and now it's been split into 3 different components. So if I just collapse these 3 components, as you can see, it's using header, content, and total as described in exercise 1.1. Great. So course information, step 2. Refactor the content components so that it does not render any names or parts of their numbers of exercises by itself. Instead, it only renders 3 part components, of which each renders the name and number of exercises of one part. So it looks like we want to refactor this component. Instead, it only renders 3 part components, of which each renders the name and number of exercises of one part. Okay, so here I will create a part component. Props equals return, and then I'll just, so it looks like they want to have this paragraph here, return this, and then rather than props part 1 and exercises, I'll make it a generic props dot, what should the name it be? Render. So this is the part component, and then rather than rendering this out, I'm gonna render out part, and so this one has 2 props, part and exercises. So we have part props dot part 1 exercises exercises 1. Okay, so what's happening is I've gotten this component and it has two props. One is part and the other one is exercises, which is here. And I'm passing a props down from this one, which is passed in here. So it's essentially doing it twice, right? So part 1 is this. So that's where I'm passing a props.part 1 down to part. It's probably a bad idea to name the prop and the component as the same thing, I'm guessing. So I might just change it to name. Yeah. So part components of which each renders the name and the number of exercises of one part. So instead of part, let's just change that to name here. So then I can just copy this and then render it again twice. This time passing props.part2 and exercise.part2 and also props.part3 and exercise.part3. So if I save, there should be no errors. Yep, and again, the app is the same as before. So that is application 1, that is exercise 1.2 done. Um, yes, okay. Our application passes on information in quite a primitive way at the moment, since it's based on individual variables. We shall fix that in part 2, but before that, let's go to part 1b to learn about JavaScript. Okay, so that is these two exercises done. I'll just make a commit now. Let's just call this part 1a exercises 1.1 to 1.2. Great. So, um, why are there... I see why. So the reason why I'm getting these errors is because once again I haven't um, changed the ESLint as before. Sorry, I'm just gonna close these. So just need to copy the same ESLint down here, and then those warnings go away. Great. Okay, so that concludes this video. In the next video, we'll move on to part 1b. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.